So you want to build your Arlecchino, but you don't know exactly how. I mean, there's some new artifacts coming out, new weapons, and just overall a ton of new stuff coming to the game. So it may be a little bit confusing figuring out actually what works in Arlecchino. Well, don't worry, because I'm here to guide you through everything you need to know about Arlecchino, from a build, talents, teams, and even constellations. And if you're wondering why Hu Tao's on your screen at the moment, I'm actually recording this right before Arlecchino comes out, so I don't have her. But if you want a really good example of how Arlecchino runs, then Hu Tao is the perfect character to showcase it. Because the two characters are extremely similar to the point where some people are saying that they're too similar. But never mind that, she's going to be on the screen today representing Arlecchino, and let's just get right into it. So let's start off with Arlecchino's talents, with the first one being her attacks. A normal attack is just a basic normal attack. It performs a maximum of 6 consecutive strikes. A charge attack consumes a fixed amount of stamina, dashing towards a nearby opponent and cleaving once. Continuously holding this button will cause Arlecchino to consume stamina and engage in an up to 3-second high-speed movement, meaning that Arlecchino is going to be moving around quite quickly whenever you use her charge attack. Then onto her plunge attack, where she plunges from mid-air to strike the ground below, damaging opponents along the path and dealing AoE damage upon impact, which is just kind of like her girl Hu Tao here. And then one thing that's pretty interesting with Arlecchino is the Mask of the Red Death. When Arlecchino has a bond of life equal to or greater than 30% of her max HP, she will enter the Mask of the Red Death state, where her normal, charged, and plunging attacks will be converted to deal pyro damage. This cannot be overridden. So if you want a good example, as I said, Hu Tao is a great example at a character who is similar to Arlecchino, and whenever you use Hu Tao's E here, you can actually see she gets like kind of infused with pyro. Now obviously Mask of the Red Death isn't actually caused by her elemental skill, but the whole infusing pyro thing is very similar, and instead Arlecchino gains this whenever she has a bond of life equal to or greater than 30%. When in the Mask of the Red Death state, Arlecchino's normal attack will deal extra damage to opponents on hit. The scales of her attack multiplied by a certain ratio of her current bond of life percentage. This will consume 7.5 of said current bond of life. A bond of life can be consumed this way every 0.03 seconds. When a bond of life is consumed in this manner, all its ashes cooldown will decrease by 0.8%. And I know I'm saying bond of life quite a lot here, and it's kind of confusing to understand at first, but it does start to make more sense whenever we go into her skills and her ultimate. But all you need to know for now is that her bond of life is pretty much her main mechanic, and this is what makes her run. Now, moving on to Arlecchino's elemental skill, which is called All is Ash. What this does is summons forth Bale Moon Bloodfire, dealing pyro damage to multiple nearby opponents and performing a dash cleave against one of them, dealing AoE pyro damage. Opponents hit by this aforementioned attack will have a blood debt directive applied to them. So again, you're just getting a ton of pyro damage off here, which is amazing, and you're also dealing a bit of AoE pyro damage, which is great and could be a little bit more useful than Hu Tao. Now, if you don't know what blood debt directive is, it's kind of a mouthful to say as well. I'll explain it here. What it does, it lasts 30 seconds, and every 5 seconds it will deal 1 instance of pyro damage to the opponent, with the max instances being 2, and this damage will be considered as elemental skill damage. When Arlecchino uses a charged attack or her elemental burst, which is called Bale Moon Rising, she'll absorb and clear nearby blood debt directives. Each directive absorbed grants her a bond of life worth 65% of her max HP, which is just amazing, and this will be very important in her build later because she will be very HP heavy. The maximum value of bond of life she can be granted through the blood debt directives within 35 seconds after using an elemental skill is 145% of her max HP. Using the elemental skill again during this duration will restart the count on duration and the limit on the value of bond of life she may gain from blood debt directives. So again, her kit is very much like Hu Tao's. As you can see, Hu Tao has Blood Blossom, which will pretty much be applied to an enemy and is considered elemental skill damage just like Arlecchino, and this pretty much affects the enemies by giving them pyro damage every 4 seconds, whereas Arlecchino's blood debt directive actually does it every 5 seconds, and it's pretty much the same, to be honest. So if you do really want to understand how Arlecchino works, then Hu Tao is a really good character to look at if you already have her. Now, I did mention her elemental burst earlier on is called Bale Moon Rising, and pretty much what this does, Arlecchino's Great Wings of Bale Moon Bloodfire beat, which if you don't know, she's kind of got like wings in her character design. It's very cool. And what this does, it deals AoE pyro damage before clearing the cooldown of All is Ash and healing her. The healing is based on her bond of life and attack. So again, it pretty much gets her elemental skill straight back up, and not only does a ton of damage, but also heals her. So again, this is very cool and very like Hu Tao. As if you don't know, Hu Tao also does a large AoE pyro attack. You know, it's very similar, and also she has some HP regeneration whenever she does this attack. So it is super similar. And I know I keep mentioning it, but you know, this is a very good character to look at. Now, Arlecchino also has some passive talents whenever you level her up, like every other character, and the first one is called Cinders Alone Shall Nourish. What this does is, while in combat, Arlecchino gains a 40% pyro damage bonus and can only be healed through Bale Moon Rising, meaning that the only way you're going to be able to heal her is through her ultimate, which is actually kind of insane. So if you're planning to run some kind of healer with her, then it's kind of useless because they're not going to be able to heal her in the first place. And that's probably why you're going to be better off going with some shielder like Zhongli, who will also be able to help in terms of buffs too. Now going on to the next passive talent, which is learned at her 4th ascension, which is Agony Alone May Be Repaid, which pretty much what it does is give characteristics to Blood Debt Directive, which go like this. When defeating an enemy opponent with a directive, Arlecchino will be granted a life bond worth 130% of her max HP. 5 seconds after a directive is applied, it'll be upgraded to a Blood Debt Due. When absorbed, it will instead grant Arlecchino a bond of life worth 130%. A bond of life created in the aforementioned ways cannot exceed the original limit on the value of bonds of life obtained through All Is Ash, meaning that if she does gain any kind of bond of life that way, then it won't be able to go any higher than 145% of her max HP. And finally, she's got her utility passive, which Arlecchino gains 1% of all elemental and physical resistance for every 100 attacks she has in excess of 1000. The maximum res increase she can gain this way for each is 20%. So yeah, that is pretty much all of Arlecchino's talents. It is very confusing. There is a lot of big words and very cool looking words, which will obviously make her kit a lot harder to understand. And I can really see why many players might be looking at guides and stuff for her, because it is so confusing at what she does. But as I've been saying a lot in this video, you just gotta kind of think of her kit a little bit like Huta. Now, obviously she isn't exactly like her. She has many unique features about her. I definitely recommend, if you still don't understand these talents, to go back through the video and watch it more carefully, because again, they've tried to make her kit look really cool, so it is a little bit hard to understand. So now it's time to get into the actual build. Starting off with her weapons, obviously her signature weapon is going to be her best 5-star. This weapon is called Crimson Moon Semblance, and pretty much what it does, it grants a bond of life equal to 25% of max HP when a charge attack hits an opponent. This effect can be triggered up to every 14 seconds, and when the equipping character has bond of life, they gain a 12%, 16%, 20%, 24%, 28% damage bonus. Obviously this will change if you get other copies of this weapon, and if the value of the bond of life is greater or equal to 30% of the max HP, then gain an additional 24% and so on damage bonus, which again just works super well with Arlecchino, especially with her whole bond of life kit. So if you do really like Arlecchino, I want to build her to the best of her possibility, then I do recommend pulling on her signature weapon. But that isn't your only choice, because there are many other 5-stars you can use, and I'm just going to go through them quickly here. We've got the Primordial Jade Wing Spear, which again is just an amazing all-round weapon. We've got the Staff of Scarlet Sands, which again is an amazing weapon too. And finally, the Staff of Homer, which is probably one of the best polearms in the game and is super useful for many characters. So if you do have a Staff of Homer, then Arlecchino can actually work super well with that too, especially as I've been saying that Arlecchino is super similar to Huta. Now, if you want a more free-to-play weapon, then I definitely recommend the Deathmatch. I mean, this isn't fully free-to-play because you can get it on the Battle Pass, but what this does, if there are at least 2 enemies nearby, the attack will be increased by 16%, 20%, 24%, 28%, 32%, depending on how many copies you have, and your defense is also increased by that too. And if there are fewer than 2 opponents nearby, then the attack will be increased by even more. So just generally, this is an all-round good weapon, and I'm actually using it on my Huta right now. As you can see, I've got it at refinement rank 5. So it's really easy to get it if you do have the battle pass, and I've been hitting a ton of damage with it on my Huta, so I'm sure it'll work pretty well on your Arlecchino as well. Now you can also use some other weapons like the Dragon's Bane, and what this does, it increases damage against opponents affected by Hydro or Pyro, which you will be using a lot because obviously Arlecchino is a Pyro unit, and you might be using a little bit of Hydro if you're planning to run out in a Vaporized team, which is a very popular team that people are going to be running it with. And again, as you can see, I've got this at refinement rank 5, so it's pretty easy to get. Now moving on to our artifacts. Let's start with the set. So if you don't know, there's actually a new artifact set coming with this update, which is called Fragment of Harmonic Whimsy. What this does, with the 2-piece, you actually get an attack bonus of 18%, and with the 4-piece, when the value of Bond of Life increases or decreases, this character deals 18% increased damage for 6 seconds. Max 3 stacks, meaning that you're going to get up to almost a 60% damage bonus whenever your Bond of Life goes up and down, which is amazing for Arlecchino. As I said, her whole kit just revolves around Bond of Life, and also you get that attack boost, which is super helpful. Now, say you don't really want to use this, or you've been pre-farming for another set, sets like Crimson Witch of Flames and also Gilded Dreams can work pretty decently too, although I definitely suggest using the kit that I mentioned before. So starting off with her Sands, you actually want to run attack percent because obviously she's going to be a main DPS, so you want to be dealing a ton of damage. And although she is a very HP heavy character and is a character that uses HP in a lot of her abilities, attack is just going to prove much more useful for you because it's going to allow you to do tons of damage. Next, for a Goblet, you're obviously going to want to run Pyro damage because it's just amazing. And of course, Arlecchino is a Pyro damage character, so you're going to be wanting to do more Pyro damage. And this is something that I also use in my Huta, and she does a ton more damage with the Pyro damage Goblet. And finally, it wouldn't be a Genshin build without the circlet being either crit damage or crit rate. As I said, Arlecchino's a main DPS character, so you're going to be wanting to run one of these crit stats, depending on how high your crit damage or crit rate is and what weapons you're using, because obviously some are going to have high crit rate values and some are going to have high crit damage values. And finally, for the substats, you want to focus on crit damage and crit rate, obviously to get those stats up higher, and this will also determine whether you want to run a crit damage or crit rate circlet, attack percent, energy recharge, and also a bit of HP too, with this just helping her get more damage, get get her ult up quicker, and just help out her bond of life too. That's pretty much all I have for the artifact stats. Again, you can pick and choose what you want to run, and sets like Crimson Witch can work brilliantly too, but I really recommend running this set because it's pretty much just made for Arlecchino. Next up for Arlecchino's teams, obviously you're going to be wanting to run her as like some kind of main DPS, especially after the build I demonstrated to you. And pretty much what you want to run is the main DPS being Arlecchino, obviously, and then the sub DPS being a character like Yelan, or you could even use Xingqiu, or just any kind of Hydro sub DPS character. Even Farina could work really well here because she can give you that boost as well and just give you a lot of Hydro off-field attack. I wouldn't recommend running a lot of Hydro characters that have a lot of on-field, you know, like Ayato, people like that. Not that I don't think you would ever run Ayato with a team like this because he is very on-field, but you want to be running off-field characters, you know, like Yelan, like Farina, like Xingqiu. And so yeah, they're going to be acting as a sub DPS. Then you're going to want some kind of shield or support character. As I said, Zhongli will work super well here because he won't really interfere with the whole vaporize reactions and stuff like that, which is super useful. And at the same time, he'll keep your team safe and increase the attack of your team if you're running him with something like Tenacity of the Millilith. You could also run other characters like Kazuha and many other Animo supports to get a little bit of swirl mixed into that team, especially with the whole vaporize. But I'd definitely suggest running a character like Zhongli or another Geo shield character because you'll be able to keep your Arlecchino safe and she won't die as often. And finally, for the healer slash support character, obviously Bennett will be healing the rest of the team and not Arlecchino, but what he's mainly here for is his buffing. As you know, he's still an amazing buffer, and if you've got him C6, that's even better because Arlecchino is going to be able to do even more damage with him. And if you want to see a video on why Bennett C6 is actually really good, I've got a video on that which I made in the past, and I definitely recommend going to watch it. But you could also run some other supports. As I said, Farina can work super well, but you want to make sure that they can kind of fit in this whole vaporized team. That's pretty much a basic team you can run. There's obviously many other teams you can run with Arlecchino, but that's what I think would be the best and just a team that will work super well. And also, while doing some research for these teams, I've seen that sites like Genshin Lab have also been suggesting this team, which is super great. And also on some other build sites too have been suggesting like exactly the same team. So I think they all unanimously agree that a vaporized team would probably be best for Arlecchino. And finally, for Arlecchino's Constellations, again, I'm making this video super early, so I don't want to leak anything. I accidentally say something that I shouldn't, so I'm not going to go into her Constellations, but what I'm going to say is that the more you get her Constellations, the better. And that I'm pretty sure she'll be an amazing character if you get her up to C6 because obviously she's going to get a ton of attack buffs, a ton of like crit buffs or whatever, and it's just going to help her do more damage overall. So if you're looking to get Constellations for her, then obviously do so. But to be fair, I think Arlecchino could be a pretty great character without any of the Constellations and just have one single copy. So there you have it. You have pretty much everything you need to know about Arlecchino, from her artifacts, her weapons, teams she runs with, and even more. And I hope this video has kind of informed you more on what she does and just how to use her properly and how similar she is to this character right here. But I'm actually super interested what you guys are running with your Arlecchino. So let me know down in the comments what artifacts you're running with her or what weapons you're running with, and just some overall decisions you've made with her. So yeah, that's about all I've got for this video. If you did enjoy it and found it helpful, then don't forget to leave a like and subscribe because it helps out a lot, and I've been doing a ton of these guide stuff recently, and I'll be making a ton more guides on Genshin Impact and also Honkai Star Rail in the future. That's all. See ya!